was holding my camera. You said you got vertigo. Now you can't have it always. LV, what's going on with you, bro? How you doing this evening?
Hey man, I'm well out today, man. You know, I got a new puppy, and she had some plastic surgery today, and that aftercare, boy, she been crying and bugging the hell out of me and whining, But I'm ready for the show.
Yo, bro, everybody's gonna want to know. Tell us a little bit about Athena. Let the people know what kind of puppy you got. Let's go ahead and knock that on out.
Where's she
Okay,
at?
I have a female American and European Doberman Pinscher. She's actually 9 weeks old today. She had her procedure to get her ears cropped yesterday, and they kept her overnight, and I went and picked her up earlier this afternoon, and that was a long ride home. I ain't never heard her
I
yelp
bet
so
it was.
loud, but she's doing fine
I
right
bet.
now. She's resting at the moment. She may make a cameo at some point. I don't know.
Well,
That's
I'm
not a
glad she's doing well.
miniature. That's a full size.
Yeah, full size. She looks like a miniature right now because she's a puppy.
Okay. I thought. Okay, so she's not up for being on camera tonight.
Nah, maybe not. I don't know. That's touch and go. We'll see. And she could be a
Shit,
little bit
your
of a
ass don't act
diva.
like you up for being on the camera tonight either, JP.
Hell, you the
Speaking of
one we
which,
can't see.
you know what? And I wish I couldn't see your ass. JP, how you doing this evening, man? Holla at the people. Shit.
I was good till I had to be subjected to this abusive interaction.
You
I
the
am good.
problem.
It's always good
Good.
to see you, brothers. I am good tonight.
Good, man. Listen, like I was saying, we're gonna go ahead and jump in it. But like I said, my kids are gonna jump in the car. I'm gonna have a lively show tonight with my interactions with the brothers and also my kids. So I am asking you all to give me a level of grace this evening as we go through this discussion, because some of this discussion is gonna touch on some sensitive matters for some of us. So I see you over there rocking the Chief shirt, LV.
Yeah,
But let's jump in. Yeah, let's jump
respect
in.
as hell. They see that
Um,
cute shit.
I hear that. The good, the bad, or the ridiculous this evening. I want to do it a little bit different. The topic is going to be Roe versus Wade and that the fact that it was repelled by the Supreme Court. But I want to make sure that I throw some subject matter out there for us because I want us to not only say if this is good, bad, or ridiculous, but I want us to give our opinions a little bit more and delve in this a little bit more from the male perspective. Um, are women's rights or women's reproductive rights the entire issue with this subject? What is the male role and responsibility in this fight? And if a justice stated their intent as they went through the confirmation hearings was to allow stated law to stand, did they perjure themselves in overturning it and voting against it? So the good, bad, and the ridiculous. I want to get into it, brothers. We're talking about Roe versus Wade. Are women's reproductive rights the entire issue? Um, and what is the male role and responsibility in this fight? So, quick, I'm gonna come to you first.
You would come to me first. Uh,
It was quick. Shit.
the the simplest thing to say is not just about women's rights. We have to go really deep into what this is really saying because people are just making it really a surface level argument, and my thing is, and I'm trying to choose my words wisely, is I'm pro life, but with that, I don't think is my job to tell a lady what to do with her body because with the reversal of this, what they said is we want to put this back into the state's hands, and I'm borderline with Missouri, and they had what's called a trigger law, and as soon as it was repealed, they put things in place that said pretty much it's a crime to have an abortion, and when you look at it, when you have states like that who have the trigger law, and then you have states that say that we will allow abortion. You're going to create a situation for women who are not able to travel to states like California or other places that allow abortions, that they're going to find a way to have abortion. It's going to go back to the 60s and 70s and even earlier, where there were people dying because they needed an abortion, and they were taking it upon themselves to use wire hangers and all kinds of things. And then when you look at the other part of that, is some businesses have decided to pull their companies from states that have the trigger law. So you're looking at it from an economical standpoint, where we're suffering economically. And I'm gonna be fair and give other brothers some time to talk, because this can really go deep into the rabbit hole. So I'm gonna stop on that point and allow some others to talk.
LV, I'm gonna swing it your way, man. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I'm just really straight, clear cut. I don't have a long soliloquy like some of you all have on things. Has the right to tell a woman what to do with her body. Um, at the end of the day, what it really seems like to me, if there's another agenda, there's a
Hmm.
section of a classification of people who feel that they're about to possibly go maybe extinct. I've seen some reports to where they were saying like by 2045 they would be like the minority in this country. So they want to make sure that they are having offspring to add to the population. It also plays into this conspiracy theory that they're planting in these younger ones' head about trying to save a race. Uh,
Yes.
so they're looking for soldiers. So I think their ideology is that gives them more soldiers, more infantrymen that they can use along the way and try to build up their so-called army. But I think it's a crock of bull. I don't even understand. I mean, I'm not into the legal things and in the politics, but I don't even understand how it kept coming back up. If they kept shooting it down, why does it keep coming up every 3 or 4 years like it's an annual renewal? I mean, maybe it's some other stuff they should be overturning. If they can they can keep voting to try to, I mean, or discussing it, wasting taxpayer money. But
Well,
hey, I don't know
that
nothing. I'm just
that's one of the things, and you touched up on one of the other things I wanted to say. But that's one of the things. This is going to be the domino effect. If this was able to be overturned, you have to look at other things like the voters' rights that keeps coming up, and so you have to look at the domino effect and what's really going to be impacted by this.
Oh, and then just to
All
add one
right.
other thing, and as far as the court that made the decision, hell, they really illegal themselves. The person that put him in there basically perjured himself and turned coat on the country. You know,
Yeah.
they should be negated because he filed. But I'm done now.
JP, I know you about to dig in, so get your shovels out. Let's go.
Okay, you're just wanting us to answer the first part of this at this point, right?
You know what? I really don't want to put any constraints on you because I know you have.
And speak up a
Um,
little bit, brother. It's hard to hear you.
Y'all having trouble hearing
yeah,
me?
that's
Okay.
just
Go ahead
Lavera
and go
don't
ahead
want
and
to
what
hear
you
you. He
gonna
turned
say.
he
We
turned
want
his
to hear
hearing
you.
aid down. He turned his
Okay.
hearing aid
So,
down. He didn't want to hear you.
John and
I don't want to
Kevin,
put any
y'all having
constraints on you.
trouble
I want you
hearing
to
me?
dig in.
I can hear you.
Nah, you good. Let's go.
Okay. LV, you might need to adjust something. Okay. The many of the people who are pro-life
Hear everybody else.
are making the erroneous assumption that every woman who gets an abortion is using abortion um, as a form of contraception or as a form of birth control. In general, that is not the case. And, for me as a therapist, when I think about it, my thoughts go to all the other reasons that women get abortions. You have victims, young victims, teenage girls, victims of sexual assault, incestuous sexual abuse, who at this point, if a state outlaws abortion outright, they are going to be put in a predicament, in a position where they are going to have to give birth to their stepfather's child, or their father's child, or their grandfather's child, or their damn creepy uncle's child. Okay. You have, you know, young ladies who um, may go to and who have gone to, you know, a college party and gotten drugged at the party, and, you know, she wakes up and, you know, who knows how many males have sexually assaulted her, and she ends up pregnant. These young girls, these ladies are going to be in a position where now they are going to have to make a choice between getting some primitive abortion. Okay, so we're going back to hangers and other primitive means of aborting a child for women who feel like, I cannot carry and give birth to this child. I can't have my uncle's child. And so that's, you know, the perspective I'm thinking about. You know, we did a post on our Facebook page, and all of the responses were, you know, from not, I don't even want to give regular conservatives a bad name. We got responses from people who are clearly married to their own damn cousins. Their parents were clearly closely related. Okay, their parents were siblings. We got such primitive response from people who are clearly ignorant of these other situations where women are carrying a child that they cannot fathom giving birth to. And so when you talk to people and you say, okay, so if these women cannot have an abortion, then what is supposed to happen? Well, they need to give birth to the child and put the child up for adoption. Who the hell is waiting in line to adopt a child whose parents were related? There's no long line of people waiting to adopt those children. When you think about it, it's absurd. And so, in fact, let's talk about that for a second. We have so many kids up for adoption. In the state of Missouri, they have to have adoption fairs, you know, where, you know, they dress the foster kids up and they take them to this location, and there's hors d'oeuvres being served, and people who are thinking about adopting a child, they come out and they meet the kids, and, you know, they go from kid to kid and introduce themselves, and the kids are trying to be as sweet as they can be and as pleasant as they can be, because, oh my God, there's 200 kids here and 25 parents looking to adopt, and how can I get chosen? That's the world we live in, where there's, you know, the foster care agencies have websites where they, you know, put the kids on the websites. I've been a therapist for some of these children. You look at the website, the description of the kid is nothing close to who the kid actually is. But at this point, they're like, we got to get this kid adopted. So if we got to smudge a little bit and lie a little bit and, you know, not mention some bipolar disorder, not mention some ADHD, then that's what we're going to do. If those kids cannot get adopted, who the hell is adopting kids whose parents are related? That's what I really wish that people would take a look at is, no, we're not talking about, you know, people who use abortion as a form of birth control. We're talking about female victims of sexual assault. Now, the second part of this question, what is the male role and responsibility in this fight? Here's the thing about that. Men have responsibility because it takes two to tangle. Okay, there's no immaculate conceptions. Women are not getting themselves pregnant. But there's a difference between role and responsibility. Men have responsibility in these unwanted pregnancies, but I'm not so sure that they have a role, because everybody focuses on telling women what they can do with their bodies. And men's role, men don't really have a role in that. And it's actually not possible for men to have a role. Men don't have a say in, whether or not an abortion is going to take place, even if they try to give men a voice. Because by role, I'm thinking about, do men have a voice in it? Even if they came up with, okay, the father has to give consent. And I'm not talking about sexual abuse cases at this point. I'm talking about regular abortions. Women always have the option of showing up and saying, well, I don't know who the father is. And so men have responsibility, men don't have a role. And so my request for women in general who are carrying a child and it's not the product of incest or anything like that. I'm talking about, the condom broke, or whatever the hell went wrong. I feel like men have been overlooked as far as them having a voice in it. It's about more than a woman being told what she can do with her body, because if she's carrying his child, I ask that women be humane and moral in at least allowing men to have a voice in those
So,
decisions, because a lot of
so,
times men want to have a voice in those decisions and they don't get to. And so that's a whole nother side of this situation. And I remember as a young person um being in a relationship with a young lady who made a comment, if I ever got pregnant, you would never know. Which I took that to mean, one, let me never run out of condoms. But two, if she were to get pregnant, she would have an abortion and she wouldn't even discuss it with me. And that comment resonated with me. I never forgot that. Like throughout the course of our relationship, we was together for some years. I never forgot that. That basically she was saying, you don't get to have a voice in this. You don't get to have a role in this. If it happens, I'm just letting you know you ain't gonna know. So that's a whole separate issue in this whole abortion thing. The primary issue at this point is, in what states is it going to be legal, in what states is it not, and how are we going to protect females who become desperate, especially teenagers who become desperate and they're like, I have to get rid of this child.
all right. So I got to jump on in because we about that time, we actually past the time for us to transition. And you made some very good points, but I want to hit on one because you talked about that role, and I think we do have a role. A lot of women have abortions because they do not feel like a man is playing his role in supporting that woman through the pregnancy and in raising that child. And so we have a role in showing support and showing not only financial but emotional support where we're going to be there to help raise that child. So I do believe that that's a role, and I think that's important for us to play that role so that women know if they have that level of support, is that decision going to be different? But I also want to hit on a couple of things. And one of my sons is getting ready to get in the car. So 1 in 5 men has been involved in abortion. That means he's had he's the woman that he was involved with has had an abortion, and that number I think we reported because, like Jero said, some people don't even know about it, and or they're not telling it because something that nature, the topic itself is not something they want to talk about. But then there's a financial component to it, and that is a piece that I think is huge. men who either do not have children or who have been in a relationship where there was an abortion are 4 times more likely to finish college. And they earn more money because men who do not go to college can advance their education, whatever level that is. It could be vocational school, could be college, 2 year, 4 year. Um, they have a tendency to earn more money because of the paper that comes along with it. So it has a financial component that goes along with it. So we need to think about it not only from the perspective of what is the impact on the women, and that is a huge piece because it is their body. And I'm not trying to negate that fact, but also what is the financial piece long term for taking care of that child? What is the impact on the fathers? There is a much broader discussion that needs to be had. And I think Roe versus Wade, as bad as the decision is, should spark some more in-depth conversation. Um, and so we're going to get to a little bit of a lighter topic, but I want to stay on this path of what we're talking about because this comes back to sexuality. And the question I want to pose to the brothers, and I'm going to ask you all to take it over. And LV, I'm going to swing to you first on this one, just right off the rip. Do affairs take pressure off of main relationships? And the sub question to that is monogamy natural? Do affairs take pressure off the main relationship? And is
Okay.
monogamy natural? LV, I'm gonna swing to you.
All right. So, do affairs take pressure off of the main relationship? Correct? Am I right on that? Oh, I guess it's
You are
on me.
correct, my brother.
Okay.
You are
And
correct.
LV, before you get
Now,
started, let me just throw out a term to get that puzzle look on Gerald's face. Sneaky link. All right, go ahead.
okay. Now, we need to define main relationship and and really what if it really is an affair, or if it's as we have discussed previously, maybe some people are giving false representation, so they may lead someone to believe that there is an actual relationship. So in a case like that, uh, it's not going to improve it, nor is it really going to be derogatory towards it because there really
Yeah.
is no issue.
Let's dig in for just a second. I don't want us to go about it from the perspective, and I didn't define this, and that's my fault. I don't want us to go about it from the perspective of looking at it saying, is this somebody I'm just kicking it with? I want it to be that there's a mutual understanding that you all are in a relationship, you and this woman, right?
In a committed
She
monogamous
does not have
relationship.
whatever, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever that means, and she does not have an awareness that you may have other people involved in your life, whether it's online or whatever the case may be. So we're in a monogamous relationship where they believe that it's you and them. Is going outside of that relationship without their consent and knowledge, does it help the relationship? And in looking at that, is monogamy natural? Is it something that we should be saying, you know what? I like you, I did, but you're not gonna be the only one. So how do we look at that? Is it going outside? What are the reasons men are going outside? What are the reasons women are going? And is monogamy natural?
Now on this one, I'm gonna have to speak off of. I've never been in a monogamous relationship, and I was unfaithful. So this is truly speculation from my point on this one. And this is from talking to several people who have read different articles about the same subject. There's something that's missing in the relationship, and through some connection with someone outside of that initial relationship, you get a connection. Somehow they feed you or give you what you're lacking in your relationship. So that's where you get a almost like a codependency. So you are a little dependent on that person, and then we're just human. You know, if you are around a person and they're fulfilling something that you're missing, you're going to start developing some type of feeling some sort of way. And then, you know, the birds and the bees take place, huckabuck, camel clutch. So, in a sense, it may and for, you know, for whoever the one is that's stepping out on a relationship, it could help them see what they really have at home as well. And then that may make them maybe either go and actually talk to their mate and let them know, hey, you know, we have somewhat of a problem, so that they can talk it through and they can get through it. So in that sense, it can help a relationship. And that's, I mean, I said, I haven't went through it, so I mean that's my speculation. Now on the other one, on the monogamy, restate it so I can go ahead and get, because you
Is
said, is
monogamy
it
natural?
natural? In my opinion, I would say it is not natural. It is something that we have evolved into as humans, but we are all animals. If you go to the animal kingdom, there's no monogamy in the animal kingdom. If you go back to our true ancestral history, I mean, there wasn't monogamy. That is something that, you know, once we came over to this country and went through other systems, it was said that this is what is supposed to be right. But it's too natural not to have that want. That's just the inner desire. We're hunters. That's just, I mean, just like you can have a caged animal, a tiger in a zoo, but you could throw them some meat. Versus if you give them a chance to actually go and chase a prey, a little bit of them is going to want to go try to chase that prey until they get tired, and then they're going to go back and eat what they ain't got to chase because it's just in you.
Mm.
So I would say it's not natural, but that is what we do now, and that is how I live my life.
So let me go back. I want to probe you a little bit. So, um, when you talk about you've never gone outside of a relationship, and I would agree with that, having known you for a number of years. I would agree with that in our adult life, right?
Mhm.
But let's jump back to college. Um, at a time when, you know, you and I were both in relationships, we were roommates. Um, and I
Look at
remember a
that
few
grin.
times. I remember a few times, you know, you pulled my card and was like, "D, you might be casting your net a little wide because I was in them streets, right?" So
If you say so.
at that point, when we were in relationships and I was casting my net, you were still keeping it pretty solid at that point as well, right?
Yes.
All right. So that's how you've practiced. So that's a good thing. So I just wanted to make sure we clarified that for the people, so that when they looked at you and talked about that, they understood that you have a long history of being faithful and 10 toes down. Where, you know, you oftentimes tried to keep me straight when I was 10 toes up. You know what I mean? Um, Johnny, quick, let's swing to you. I was in the air, Jared. I was in them streets. I was running around, 10 toes up.
As Kay just
Johnny,
said,
quick.
you were of the community.
Yeah, I was at the
Shit.
community.
He was out in the community.
That country term, 10 toes down, 10 toes up. I'm like, what on earth does that mean? Okay.
Um,
We gonna
for
hear
me,
I do a show. We gonna feature. We gonna focus on you.
yeah, bougie, and
Yeah.
I'm bougie, but I don't claim it. Yeah, that's what it's gonna be called. Um, but as I mentioned on our previous talk a couple of weeks ago, where we had our audience lead to believe I lead people on. That that is not the
We didn't
case.
leave him to believe that.
when I when I'm in a committed relationship, I'm in a committed relationship. Cause my philosophy is if I have to cheat on you, I don't need to be with you. And so I'm not going to lead anyone on. I'm not, and to the point LV made, yes, when you feel that there is something lacking, if it's conversation, if it's some type of financial need, if it's the lust, if it's something, people tend to go out and find what they're lacking and try to get that fulfilled. Now, I disagree with LV as far as when he says a monogamous relationship is not natural. Um, for me, I believe it's natural because what we grown to believe is we have to quench every thirst and feed every hunger, and what you have to do is know when to be disciplined and say yield not to temptation, because you're going to always be tempted, because sometimes you just have to sit and just like, ooh, that's a nice one right there. But and where you leave it. The trouble comes in is when you say that's a nice one right there, and let me go see something about it. And that's where you start getting into trouble. And so what I know for myself is we live in a society where you have a lot of sexual innuendos, and that could get you into trouble. And maybe that's the reason why I believe it's natural, because I know there's people that put you in a position where you can easily make a wrong decision or set you up or whatever the case may be. And so I look at it as being disciplined. And when you have that disciplined mentality, then a monogamous relationship can be very natural. But when you can give in to temptations, like when you're on a diet and trying to lose weight, you always have them temptations going on around you, and you have to look at that forbidden fruit. Can be nice, but then my logic side kicks in, is like there's gonna be other problems that come with that, and I don't want to deal with those other problems. So for me, it's a natural to be monogamous. Now, yes, there's a thirst that always wants to be quenched, but
That's why
being
it's
You
not
ne-
disciplined.
you ain't never
natural. That's
you
why
ain't
it's
never
not
drank from the jug,
natural.
John.
No, because I'd rather be. I like I said before. I like for my name to remain good in the streets and be clean.
And so
That's so political.
in you saying that, you know, that show that you did, and I was saying John ain't shit. We was messing with John. I was messing with John, so I don't want to put the perception out there that John is doing this and that. John don't drink. John don't smoke. He's one of the purest brothers that I know. So in doing that, that was just my sense of comedic relief and having fun with John. But I don't want people who know John who don't know me to believe that I'm putting him out there in that manner, because it would be the furthest thing from the truth. JP, man, we gonna swing your way. I wanna get your feeling, and I want to give my 2 cents on it. So, JP.
Oh, okay, so your first question, do affairs take pressure off the main relationship? In some ways, it probably does, but at what cost? And
We can stop the show right there.
why do you say that?
If Gerald said in some ways it probably does, here, hey, cut it. Go to
Well,
the
let me
music, John.
explain. Yeah. Let me explain what I mean, though. Let me
We
explain
don't
what I
need no
mean.
explanation. Go to the music, John.
No, no.
We want
Okay.
people to live on that shit right there. Go to the music, John. No, go
So
ahead,
now y'all
JP. I'm
not gonna
sorry.
like the rest of what I'm gonna say. Okay. In instances where where a couple is mismatched or unevenly yoked with regards to their sex drive, the extramarital or whatever, whether they're married or not, the affair can take pressure off of the relationship as far as the person who has the lower sex drive. Um, Obviously, if their partner is out in the community, as as Candace put it, it takes that pressure off. But here's something to think about: when these couples address this, when they come in for therapy, the person who has the lower sex drive, and this is the reason why I said yeah, but at what cost? They still feel hurt and betrayed. And their perspective is, listen, I understand that this person has a higher sex drive than me, and it's not always the male. Okay, let me just say that for our people out there. Um, I have seen cases a lot actually where the woman has the higher sex drive and the male has the lower sex drive. The person who has been cheated on, they acknowledge, okay, yeah, I might not be giving it to them as often as they would like, and da 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 da. And so, yes, so my partner, my spouse has gone outside this marriage, outside this relationship to get their sexual needs met. I feel hurt. I feel betrayed. That was not the solution to our problem in the bedroom. So I don't appreciate that being a solution. So, yeah, it can take some pressure off, but the question is, do people want the pressure taken off in that manner? Typically, no, they don't. Okay. Now, your next question is monogamy natural? Let me say this first, because LV stated that there's no monogamy in the animal kingdom. In the animal kingdom, these are animals who mate for life. They are monogamous. Wolves, bald eagles, swans, gibbons, barn owls, beavers, albatrosses, whatever the hell those creatures are, prairie wolves, black vultures, French angelfish.
Okay, I want to
Typical,
pause real quick. When
Did he
did
just give us a
did the,
list?
right?
hold on,
When
hold on,
did
hold
he
on.
do
I'm
research?
making a
I mean,
point.
LV just made that
Hey,
comment.
hey,
He did
Right.
some research.
Did he give us
hey.
a list?
No, I was already planning to cover this. It's gonna lead in. Y'all know I come to the show prepared. Have you met
Somebody
me?
gave us a list.
I do the radio show with 6 pages every week. I
I'm a
already plan
lion,
to
though.
cover this because it goes into the point that I'm going to make. But let me
I'm a
continue
lion.
down my list.
At the
I'm
top
On
a
of the
this
food
lion.
list, we
chain.
have
All that stuff is at the
everything.
bottom of the food chain.
What?
Let him get his list out. Finish. You got
On
like
this
10 more
list,
animals. Come on, Noah Ark.
it is way more than 10. Everything from coyotes, 90% of birds are monogamous. Now here's my thought. And the reason why I wanted to present that is when it comes to the question of is it natural? It can be natural even for humans, because we have LV who said it's not. We have Johnny Quick who said that it is. My answer to the question is it actually depends upon the individual. For some individuals, it is absolutely natural for them to be monogamous, but for others, they struggle in that area. Okay. And I'm not just talking about your random cheater, I'm talking about people who are single. They are not in a monogamous relationship because they struggle with the idea of only being intimate, sexually intimate with one person for the rest of their lives. Now, here are my thoughts. For those who it is not natural for them, there is another option. And the other option is the polyamorous lifestyle. Okay? Polyamory. Here's a
Mm,
definition of that:
talk about it.
characterized by or involved in the practice of engaging in multiple romantic, typically sexual relationships. Here's the clincher: with the consent of all the people involved. So, for those people out there who feel like it's not natural for me to be monogamous, okay, you do have an option: polyamory. The problem is, oftentimes people who should be going in the direction of polyamory do not, because although they are very open to the idea of them having multiple partners, they are not open to the idea of their partners having multiple partners. That is the reason why there is so few people who turn to polyamory. Because, and this is very common in therapy, where I'm seeing someone who cheats, but the As soon as their spouse cheats, they lose it.
Yeah.
I'm talking, it all of a sudden does not matter that they have been cheating for 10 or 15 years. They cannot fathom the idea of being cheated on, which puts me in a position where I can't even have the discussion about polyamory because they like, I'm okay with that only if it's one sided. And
Can I ask a
so,
question on that, Gerald? Can I ask a question on
yes,
that? Is it the women who typically say, or I shouldn't say typically, do you find more women say, I can't fathom being cheated on, or is there more men that say they can't fathom being
that's
cheated on?
men. That's men.
Yeah, yeah, because I'm not built like that.
Yeah, men are
We've
very
heard.
much,
Yeah,
yeah, men are much more open to the idea of them doing the cheating than them getting cheated on. And I have seen couples in therapy where the women only cheated as revenge and to give the man a little bit of a wake up call like, hey, you out there hoeing? Well, how does it feel? I went out there and I rode somebody. What ends up happening though is instead of it teaching the man a lesson, he gets so obsessed with the idea that she cheated that they can never really move beyond it. And so then when she's like, you did the same thing, his response is, I don't care. I can't believe you did this to me.
can I throw
And
something out there?
huh?
Can I throw something out there real quick? Because I
Yes.
want you to address what I want to throw out there as you walk through.
Okay.
Because I think part of it is how we envision women as we grow up. So I got four sisters, and all my sisters are older, and I don't know what they was doing in the streets when I was still in grade school, right? But the way that the picture was always painted of them, my grandmother, of any woman in my life, was that women move through relationships in love, whereas it was kind of saying that men move through relationships almost in lust. Like Laveria was saying, we picture ourselves as hunters. So when I go out here and get in these streets, I'm envisioning me being in the streets like back in the day. I'm envisioning these talking about dog. I'm just hunting. I ain't loving. I'm just hunting. I'm shooting my prey and I'm conquering. Whereas the women in my life I always looked at and said, if she gave herself to him, that meant she had feelings for him. Whereas I might have been moving through the streets knowing I wasn't really caring. So there was this emotional tie that I envisioned the women having with the men that they were having affairs with, where I was saying, "Oh no, I'm just in these streets. I'm not emotionally tied to somebody." And I think when you get men who say, "Imagine her cheating," because they imagine emotion being tied to whatever that woman is doing in the streets, when they look at themselves, they're saying, "Oh, this is an emotion. I'm just out here hunting." So I wanted to throw that out there as you were kind of wrapping up, because I want to hear how you deal with that piece of it as you're also giving therapy and working with these couples on how this dynamic works and how they work through it.
Yeah, what you're actually speaking to is one of the four types of cheaters because there's four types of cheaters. And so the
Well,
hunters,
this might be a little bit too much for me. I don't want to know the types of cheaters.
yeah, we don't have time to get into that. But I will say that the hunters is one type who is out there engaging in cheating, engaging in affairs, and for them, yes, they're just hunting, and that is about sex drive. That's about high sex drive. But when it comes to the other types of cheaters, for example, those people who suffer from hypersexuality during manic stages of bipolar disorder, they're not just out hunting, it's psychiatric, or people who, as LV talked about, something is lacking within the marriage. And a lot of times it's about the companionship more so than just the sex in the extramarital affair. Now, let's look at this generationally also, because one of the things you described is basically how young boys were raised back in the day. Oftentimes, young boys were raised to be more cognitive, and girls were raised to be more emotive, more emotional. And so when it came to sex, yes, oh, she's having an emotional connection to this person that she's having sex with, and he's just screwing. But when you think about how we raise our children in modern times, young boys are now being raised to be more nurturing, to be more open and expressive and in touch with their feelings and communicative. Fathers are hugging their sons and telling them that they love them every day. And so modern males are not necessarily falling up under the umbrella of what you are describing. And when they grow up and they get cheated on, yes, they're shocked because they are more in touch with their emotional side. They are also less likely to engage in affairs because they are more in touch with their emotional side. Now, let's look at the flip side of it, because it would be a mistake to assume that women on the whole are so emotionally in tune when it comes to sex, because in our current times, there are a lot more women cheating than what people would ever imagine. And there are women cheating who will say, I'm just doing my thing. I don't have an emotional connection with these men that I'm having sex with. I'm just having sex. So when it comes to being able to get on the internet and hook up with somebody and have sex within an hour, those women they're not having an emotional connection. They're screwing. They're just getting laid. And I have seen women in therapy who only have sex with married men because they do not want that man. And so their thing is, if he even thinks about leaving his wife, I'm dumping him. I don't want him on that level. I'm only with him because I don't have to worry about him trying to be my damn man. We are screwing.
Gerald, I'm surprised you didn't mention anything about swingers and swingers clubs.
That's more along the line of polyamory,
Right.
because it's open and it's consensual and everyone is aware, and there's a lot more swinging going on these days because couples who realize that that's what they're into. And I've had couples come into therapy and say, we need to discuss the option of swinging. Both of them are open to it. One of them isn't willing to go along with it just to save the marriage, like, okay, if I don't do this, like, we're done, so I'm gonna agree to it. There are couples out there who are like, they both want variety. And I don't have a problem with polyamory. I don't believe in sitting and judging people based upon how they live their lives. My only problem is if you present yourself as monogamous and you marry someone who's monogamous and then you running around cheating because deep down inside you're really polyamorous. If you're polyamorous, you need to date people who are polyamorous so that y'all both can have an open relationship. She can screw other people, you can screw other people, y'all can screw other people together, and nobody's tripping. That's the solution.
All
Okay.
right, man. It's time for us to start wrapping up. But real quick, myself. Um, I think monogamy comes with maturity. I think it's something that you evolve into as you learn who you are, right? I can't imagine having multiple women in my life at this point because it's too difficult. It's too much work in the one relationship that I have. That shit is a lot of work. And I mean, really, I mean, because as a human being, the one thing that I'm always trying to do is grow. I feel like if I stop growing, I'm dead. And I don't have any plans on dying anytime soon. So if we're always growing, we're always changing. The only way I can stay in my relationship is if we are both changing at a similar rate, understanding what how we're changing, and then trying to grow together. That is a lot of work that you have to put into that relationship. And doing that with multiple people to me is it's not even fathomable. So I get the polyamory piece, but for me that's not the solution. As a 20-year-old, if somebody had told me that you need to be monogamous, I'd have been like, yeah, that's a part of the game. I'm monogamous with my main person, but I got other people that I'm not monogamous with. So it was just all a game for me. And you know, playing with people's emotions. I mean, it all went along with it. And I don't say these things to try to make light of them. I say these things to say this is who I really have been, and I hope that I am maturing to be a better version of that person. So I think that again, monogamy is maturity. I think you grow into it. I don't know if it's natural or not. I do know that being in multiple relationships at 52 is not something that even appeals to me. So, listen, man, we've gone a little bit long this evening. I thought it was a good discussion, but I do want to swing it back around the room to see if anybody has any last thoughts that they want to give. JP, we're gonna swing it to you first because you went long this evening, and we talked about this being a 45-minute show. You gave 45 minutes worth of therapy tonight by yourself. So, what you got to add, JP?
So here's another
Actually,
45. Go
nothing
ahead.
good. What'd you say, Johnny? Quick.
I
You go
said,
another
here-
45. Shit.
I don't have anything else. I'm good.
Appreciate you, man. Love you. Johnny, quick, what you got, bro?
I do have a question for Gerald before we close out. You listed all those animals, and it brought back a thought to me. Was there a rumor in the village?
Word.
Johnny Quick got jokes.
Word in the village.
And but I just want to tell our listeners, please like, share, subscribe, and thank you for listening. And that's all I want to say.
All right, LV, what you got, bro?
Hey, I just got one brief little financial tip I want to throw out there. With the recent change with Roe versus Wade, find out the pharmaceutical companies that produce the Plan B drug, because I'm quite sure those prices are going to go up, and that's going to be in high demand. So, just quick little tip. Hey, see y'all next week. Oh, and I might bring my puppy out next week. She's napping right now, but I might bring her next week.
And I want to give you your props, LV, because you ain't rubbed yourself or nothing tonight. So appreciate you, bro. Listen, I want to say thank you all.
Disappointed about that because
Yeah,
people love when
they-
LV rub himself.
they've been calling the nipple maniac. So there you go.
And then on that note,
hey y'all, I appreciate y'all, man. Y'all have a good evening. Love you, brothers. I holla. Peace.